2, 1.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us here on tonight's episode of Westmarch Workshop. It's episode 35, brand new ancient items. Yes, patch 2.1.2 is here, but some people have said that it has gotten here too soon. For it is not yet Season 2. Many feel that we were lied to, because it doesn't contain the items that people were expecting. That will be patch 2.2. So without further ado, let's go to the two of us for tonight's episode.
I see what you did there. Some rhyme time. Ain't no crime to rhyme.
There are just too many twos going through my feed today in the last couple days.
So that's what was that a preview when you texted me about the too many twos earlier?
Let's go with yes. That actually makes it seem as if I knew that I was doing tonight's opening. Tonight's starting early.
Tonight's opus of an opening.
Yeah, there you go. Yes, I save.
Swear I got goosebumps. Wow, man, look at you. You're giving people feelings.
But going on that is just the two of us.
Yes, it is a crew of 2. How long can we rhyme for, do you think? Oh, man. But yeah, no, there's a missing part in the middle of us right now. If you're watching live, there's no Archon on the overlay. We have our brand new overlay, which we should mention, redone over the weekend by our faithful designer, Dreadscythe. Thank you so much, sir, for this beautiful display here.
Yep. Dread, we are going to double your pay.
It is increasing from 0 to 0.
Mm-hmm. I know, but you can thank us later. But seriously, he's been doing our last couple of overlays. The original, when Archon and I first started, was done by the marvelous Henio brand. The Brand brothers, but they've gotten a lot of other things. They've been really busy. So Dread just took it upon himself to come and go and help us out with creating some overlays that got Leviathan officially onto the stream, and he's just been cranking them out ever since then.
That's right. It's an
awesome little thing.
That's right. Yeah, he saved me from being the middle child, just stuck betwixt the both of you. But yeah, he's amazing, and he really has a passion for it. He also designed the website for Jh's clan, the Vizjurai.
The Vizjurai.
The Vizjurai.
Come on now.
Which you can Google search if you want to find it, because I do not know the URL offhand. But in BlizzPro news, actually, we just got Dreadscythe on our team to do more designing stuff. So if you like his work here on our overlays, you'll be seeing a lot more of it on the site. If you visit, our Warcraft, Diablo, Starcraft, any of those sites, he might be doing headers or who knows what.
Yeah, so hopefully you'll be able to go through and see more of his work on the show. But until then, you can always check him out on his own Diablo podcast, The Scythe and Shield, with JC Monkey.
That's right, yes. They released theirs on Tuesdays. They actually just had an episode that I listened to this morning. And it's really funny because I feel like a lot of the podcasts all release on different days now. And it's really interesting, like as news items come and then the podcasts come, it's like this person's complaining about this thing. And then the next podcast, this person's like celebrating the thing that the last person was complaining about because we just got news on it. And then the next podcast comes, is just like this like constant iteration, if you will, the iterative process of podcasts of Diablo.
And of course, we have the luckiest date. We have Wednesday. So while Tuesday might actually get the patches, we get the news on Wednesdays. So in true fashion, just a few hours ago, they announced a big community buff. But we'll get that more later once we actually start covering the news. That's
right, yeah. It's funny, too, because without fail, Neinball will send a text, usually to our group, now just to me, saying, what are we going to see today? Are we going to get an announcement in the 11th hour? And without fail, every single time we get something. So you guys should hope that we stay very regular to our Wednesday night, because you'll get something interesting every Wednesday, hopefully.
Yeah, this time I actually went and sent a tweet out, and I think I got the response like less than an hour later.
I think so. It was very quick.
Yeah,
Nevilistus was on it.
yeah. It was there about an hour after I said, I wonder what news is going to come out today. And then Nevilistus is just, oh, you might want to check the front page of the Diablo website. And it's like,
You
yes.
better cut it out before people think you have like an insider. You're gonna get Martha Stewarted, the
Oh,
insider
well,
info,
but we're on a fan site and doing a Diablo podcast. So obviously we have all the inside information and we get paid all the big dollars from Blizzard.
and all the sweet drops like your Tasker and Theo that you found every day, all day.
I finally did find one before the patch hit. Not that it was any good, but I did find one.
It's the milestone, you know.
Yeah.
And speaking of the patch and finding things and all that stuff, how's your week in gaming been since we last convened?
My weekend gaming has actually been a little bit uneventful. Didn't Because we were just after our last episode, and there was the announcement that we'd be getting the patch this week. Yesterday, for those watching us live, we it just was like, well, I'm just not going to play. I logged on a couple of times just to farm out like another Paragon level or two, but nothing really substantial, just because after having played on the PTR, those Marauders changes, I just couldn't bring myself to going and playing like this playstyle with what it was going to be this week. So
Right.
I just kind of let that sit. And but I've been playing through. I've knocked out quite a few rifts these last 2 days in the limited time that I've had. Yesterday I got off of work at 8 and I got home I got home at around like 8:40 because I got a ride. It was just sat at the computer at around 10 o'clock, played for about an hour, and then decided, oh, I need to go to bed now.
What a day to come home late, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Of all the Tuesdays.
Yeah. And then I guess on the non-Diablo side of things, in the tabletop sphere, I didn't actually play any Warhammer over the weekend because the playoff bracket had started, so all the tables were pretty much claimed for the what would that be? What is before quarterfinals?
The rounds?
Yeah.
I don't even know.
I guess, yeah.
Round
it
of
was just
64?
Yeah, it was the basically the bracket going into the quarterfinals, and because I was in second place, I had a bye, so I didn't actually I didn't have to play, and I wasn't able to play because all the tables were filled with people wanting to play those last few matches. And this week we're going into the quarterfinals, and so my undead are going up against the Empire.
Gotcha.
That's and then also I created my first character for the Call of Cthulhu tabletop RPG. They did this huge Kickstarter, I think it was last year, for the Oriental Express module for its 20th anniversary, and so we're going and starting up that campaign.
Very nice. Exciting things on the horizon.
Yeah, being the uber nerd. And so scrolling back from some of the non-Diablo talk, how was your week in gaming?
Well, if you want to talk about Diablo talk, it's a little scarce. As you may recall from last week, I kind of had my meltdown, breakup. I don't even know. Diablo and I weren't talking because I was very perturbed by the announcement that patch 2.1.2 would drop before season 1 dropped, and sky's falling. It's gonna ruin everything that I worked for, leaderboards, blah blah blah. So, I mean, I took it hard. I will definitely say that. I realized, like, it sounds crazy. A lot of people probably aren't that invested to the level that I feel I got myself. And I'm not like ashamed of it or anything, because this game means a lot to me. Like, I want to do a podcast about it. Like, it obviously is on a different level for me. And that was kind of the attitude I took towards seasons. And just to see kind of that eradication is maybe too strong of a word, but just to know that there would be like this asterisk at the end of season 1 now, just because so much changed right at the end, made things feel weird for me. So I actually went to bed that night and kind of tossed and turned and decided to quit. Not Diablo, but to just kind of quit this season.
Yep.
And say, like, all right, I'm going to kind of freeze frame what my stats are now, what rankings I'm up to, etc. And that's kind of what I will say I got for season 1. And then the weekend came and I had free time. I'm like, well, I should probably check on the clan, see how people are doing, because I didn't want to become a stranger. And normally I'm just sitting at my desk watching Netflix or something anyways, and then the second screen has always been Diablo, so it's weird to not have it be Diablo. So I played a little bit, but not nearly as much. I just leveled back up my Bane of the Trapped, because that was one of the gems I lost when I killed that Demon Hunter last week. So I figured I would want stuff to roll over to the non-season, since we'll be stuck with non-season for a little bit, and then I could do like a quick time attack on those leaderboards, leave my mark there before going to season 2. And then the patch dropped yesterday, and I got home. I was actually supposed to go on a date yesterday, but it ended up getting delayed to later this week. So I found myself at home with nothing on the schedule. And I was like kind of glad early on that I had this like prior engagement. So I was like, yeah, let the patch drop. I'm going to show them, like, I won't even log in that night. Like, they'll understand how I feel. And then, of course, it drops. And as soon as I get home, I log in, and Nevelistis sends me a PM in game. And she's like, this doesn't look like taking a break from the game. What is this? So yeah, the thing is, like, the game is addicting for me. Like, I really do enjoy playing it at the end of the day. And whether or not it kind of brought things into perspective for me of like, the game is kind of what you make it. And if you want to have the esports side of it, the leaderboards, competitiveness, you kind of have to also be ready for anything to happen. Because at the same time, something like rollbacks when the exploits happened, that could have been a thing, and then we could have been a little upset about, that puts an asterisk on the season too. So I mean, within any season, you never really know what's going to happen, so you kind of have to treat it that way. And I guess it helped me kind of come to that conclusion. But I've been enjoying.
Yeah, I just want to point out your use of analogies and then the events that transpired. So you were going through to try and hook up on a date, and then they had to reschedule. So you end up calling up your ex and spending the night with her.
I guess I hadn't really looked at it that way.
Yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah.
And of course, having given up, and now he's rank 2 on the Hardcore Crusader leaderboards.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it feels so like I don't want to celebrate it, because I feel like I took my stance last week, but it is kind of exciting. Not only, and now here I'm gonna like stunt on you a little bit, but like, not only is it number 2 in America, but it's number 2 in the world, which is awesome. So the America server right now actually has the number 1 and number 2 Hardcore Crusaders, which is pretty awesome.
That is freaking awesome.
Yeah, our region was actually lagging behind. I think the Asian realm had many of the higher tiered Crusaders, just in terms like world rankings. But yeah, that's really cool. The guy who was already number 1 before the patch dropped, he logged in, it looked like this morning, because I was kind of following. I can't stay away from those leaderboards, so I was following along, and he got up to 44 when he was at 42 previously. So
yeah,
it looks like people are jumping about 1 to, or I guess 2. I thought it was going to be 3 that people would jump up, just from like no gear change or anything, just the new changes to the Greater Rifts. But it seems to be about 2 maybe with the at the higher side of it.
Yeah, and you do have quite a bit of ways to go in order to grab that number 1 spot, don't you?
Yeah, it's funny, when I came home, I kind of checked again just to see what had transpired, and there are a couple of people who I'd never seen on the leaderboards move like way up, so that part of the synopsis, or the analysis of the patch coming in, is kind of coming true. But it seems like the people that really cemented themselves at the top, like, are still the ones with the most to gain, I guess, the best advantage, because they already have the farming done. It's just going to be like some of these other people getting lucky with an ancient dropper. I think there was a quote that you actually had on Twitter where it's like one ancient item could change. What was it, like the entire leaderboard?
Yeah, it's the leaderboards are one ancient item away from being thrown into chaos.
Yeah. Because, yeah, I mean, that's really the case. I actually haven't spec'd anyone, so I don't know, like, who's got what ancients yet or anything. But even just a couple of upgrades of gear, and suddenly, like, you're way ahead of where you were before. Even with legendary gem upgrades just being more available, too. But, yeah, it's a long way to go to number 1. And I don't want to get sucked back in, because I don't want... Because like when you look at the overall changes, I guess we can kind of use this to. The rest of my week wasn't all that exciting week in gaming, anyways. I don't do anything else besides Diablo because I'm not as awesome as you are with the tabletop. But we can use this to springboard into the new patch. And what I was going to say about it is that I'm really excited about all the changes. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I think it's great that all of this is packed into this patch because it is adding some really cool things, especially with the goblins. I've been seeing a lot of news of people finding amazing packs of them lately.
It just would have been better had it been in season 2 and not at the end of season 1.
Precisely, and I feel like they being Blizzard end up shooting themselves in the foot because a lot of people are logging in right now and totally loving the changes and how their class plays and really vibing off of the brand newness of it. But then when season 2 drops, like what's really going to feel new, you know? Because when that drops, there's one new potion, there's one new item for your class, and maybe a couple of others, you know? But because you've already experienced the joy of finding those new treasure goblins, because you've already experienced the change in the greater rifts, it might actually end up feeling like season 2 is a long season, even if it ends up being much shorter than season 1 was, for the simple fact that you experienced all this already for a month and a half, maybe, before we get season 2.
That is true. That is true. And it'll be interesting to see, just now that everyone is actually going through and playing with the changes. So I imagine a lot of the people that are going to be towards the top will have played on the PTR, but you know, they're already kind of getting like a sneak peek at what it is that I have to do, you know, in order to get up at the top. Although I guess there's that one new belt for Crusaders that at least might change things a little bit, you know, for them. And there's another one, the staff for Witch Doctors, which will just help people get into place. It's still not better than the furnace for like the Jade Doctors.
It's
so
like
there's a lot of
stopgap.
like, yeah, exactly. It now is taking the place as the second best weapon, or you know, until you get a furnace.
Yeah,
So-
no, it's. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, it's just going through and saying that people are getting to test out all these things in preparation for the season. They get to find out exactly what it is that they need to do and how they want to gear and what item works and what combos go on. Obviously, once the season goes through, there'll be more playtesting done. And you'll have more efficient builds as they cut some of the slack and test around. But you know, it's just, you know, all the secrets are going to be known before.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people have been saying. I think the credit originally goes to Scanline from Twitter, and he's actually part of our BlizzPro clan now too. He was saying, you know, think of patch 2.1.2 dropping as really season 1.5, and I've kind of been following along with that, somewhat ironically saying it here and there, but people have really been gravitating towards that as a way to feel about this time period right now. Just because you're right, like you are getting a preview of what's to come in terms of how your build will be and how you'll refine it and things like that. Because actually, if you really think about it, besides some of those seasonal items that may shake things up, what you have right now is kind of what your character will look like at the end of season 2.
Yeah.
You know, just minus a few ancient versions of those items.
Yeah, I guess that will be the only real thing that will change is just by the end at this point in time, though hopefully shorter in season 2, you're going to have a lot more ancient items. So you will be even more powerful than what you are now.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it'll be actually. You know what'll be really interesting when we see the lockout at the end of season 1, see where everyone has gotten to with their ranks and whatnot, and then if season 2 is actually shorter, see how close we get to that, and that will basically tell you how powerful or how influential ancient items are. Because if they make up, you know, extra month and a half's worth of time of grinding or getting to ram your head against greater rift walls, then in a way, ancient items is actually an amazing addition to the game because it cuts time that you might need just to grind in order to push up to higher greater rifts, simply by adding that next tier of power.
Yeah. And then patch 2.2 some point in the future after this, and we'll get new sets and further class changes.
Indeed. And then expansion, right?
Yeah, we can only hope, and then the expansion shortly after that. When was Gamescom again? We need to find out. Let's go to Germany.
Right, yeah. Dude,
Yeah.
I'm actually, a quick derail. PAX East is coming up in March.
Yeah.
And historically, Blizzard has had a presence there the last 2 years because they've done a lot of their Hearthstone releases. They did the
Hmm.
original This Is Hearthstone there, and then they also did Curse of Naxxramas. So
Hmm.
now their last expansion was out, a month ago. Yeah, that's right. So what could be the next thing we see? I don't know, 2 months from now.
Who knows? I imagine we'll probably see more stuff with Hearthstone,
Hmm.
as people are kind of expecting them to do like two expansions per year, or at least one big expansion, another one set of solo adventures. So maybe we'll see another raid come out,
Right.
or maybe we'll see something about Overwatch or Heroes of the Storm, because Heroes, I think, had a big presence last year, didn't it?
Yes. Well, yeah, because it was still in that like technical alpha, so people didn't get
Hmm.
access. So it was a big deal just to be able to play it. They had it took up a lot of the floor space in terms of the booth that they had, because they had 5-on-5 for all humans, and then a five versus AI. So that's 15 screens if you think about it. And then
Hmm.
other, like Diablo had like 4 screens, and Hearthstone had like 5 iPads. So yeah, they had the majority of the hardware.
Yeah.
So yeah, we
Mm.
will see. I'm just hoping that maybe it'll be more 2.2 stuff, but I would love
Mhm.
for like an early expansion tease or something.
Yeah, that definitely would be awesome. I don't expect to see anything regarding an expansion until 2.2 is out. I believe Gamescom is normally in August,
Hmm.
so maybe we'll see something teasing patch 2.2 before then.
Why do you always undercut my hope?
I'm sorry.
And then you always turn out to be right.
Yeah, I guess I'm just kind of going off of the assumption of kind of, like 5 or 6 month seasons.
Right, right. So
Yeah.
yeah, if you think about, well, if it's
Yeah.
gonna be like
I
4 months and then like downtime, then
mhm.
about 5 months.
Well, I really don't expect them to do more than 1 or 2 weeks of downtime. With season one supposed to be ending on February 3rd, I really expect that the season two will start on either the 6th or the 13th.
Yeah, no, that definitely seems reasonable.
Hmm.
Because yeah, it's a similar turnaround when the patch came out. Was it that Tuesday back in August, and then that Friday they started up the season. So I would
Hmm.
imagine probably the 13th, just because they never had the rollover to deal with, and now this time around they'll probably have to give adequate time for people to consolidate their seasonal to non-seasonal and all that good stuff.
Yep.
Um,
And then all those, just I think the biggest thing is going to be just the database impact of having all those items suddenly removed from inventory, recreated and mailed to players, and then it all sitting in their mail waiting for people to just go through it all and collect it.
hmm What's the Do you remember what the time limit is on that? Because I know that it's not permanent. Like you have to do something with it for a certain time, or else it disappears on you.
I do not remember.
Hmm.
Let's
Because
see.
I can't remember if it was like longer than a couple of weeks, but I would actually.
30 days.
Oh,
You
30
have
days.
these items can be claimed by any non-seasonal hero for up to 30 days from the time you first log in after a season ends.
Oh,
Oh,
interesting.
yeah, that makes it seem as if it takes you a month to log in, you'll have another month to claim the items.
Yeah, it does sound like what it would be like.
Hmm.
I was gonna think if it was 2 weeks or something, then that would kind of, you could reverse engineer it and say they want those items like dealt with or out of the game, and then that's when the next season will start, because then they'll pave the way for more items being created. But a month seems like a good amount of time for everyone to get their stuff together, especially those who are like late to the party or whatever.
Hmm.
But what I was going to ask you was, in terms of patch 2.1.2, have you found anything that either surprised you or that you thought people were talking about, buzzing about on Twitter or anything like that?
Um, I get yes and no. I mean, one of the biggest things is just for people that like did not play on the PTR and only read the patch notes as far as the Marauders changes for Demon Hunters, weren't expecting as huge of a change as it was, because it is just a complete 100% change in the play style of that build. And so, in almost everyone that I've seen since the patch has come out has loved it. I've heard zero complaints
Hmm.
about people not liking this change, even though it, from the very, very high end, it has removed some of this patch. Not just the Marauders change, but the smokescreen change has reduced some of our survivability and some of the damage output. It plays so much better that it feels more gratifying with which to do it. And so
Nice.
I've not really heard anyone, knocking it. I think that's one of those biggest things that I think people might not have really fully appreciated because they hadn't played the PTR. And although I had, so it wasn't really a big shock to me. But that's what I'd have to say. But as far to me personally, the biggest surprising thing, I guess, is just kind of like the co-release, how it's out on both console and PC this time. They actually delivered on their promise on that one.
Yeah. Wait, is that the surprising part? They actually did it.
It's more as that they didn't give a definite. It was, we plan on it. That's our goal. We want to, but never saying that we are doing it. They were more coy than they normally are when giving responses like that.
Hmm. Yeah, no, it's really funny that you say that. I actually saw a lot of people that were surprised when they logged into their console that they were getting that they were getting the patch, and then B, that they had the season 2 items. That's one of the things that I was reading through on the forums. People were like, "Wait, how come I have these? Like, we don't have seasons, so why?" There was a lot of kind of head scratching. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so for anyone who's listening that has the console version, maybe you haven't logged in yet, or you haven't farmed as much as you want to yet, you actually have access to items that PC players don't have. So console master race for however long.
Oh, I could save this one for the after show, but there's a very interesting article about the whole PC Master Race thing.
Oh, really? Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's hear that at the give
Uh-huh.
people something to stick around for.
Yes.
In terms of surprises that I noticed, well, for me, honestly, I didn't realize that ancient items would be as like as around as they are.
Hmm.
Just looking through the clan, as I logged in today, I noticed a lot of people were finding not only ancient items but good ancient items too. Like someone had almost a perfect Tasker and Theo ancient at this point, which is kind of hilarious because now obviously it doesn't do anything in quotes, of course.
Yeah. Well, for witch doctors.
Yeah, and actually it was an intelligence one, so there
Oh,
you
there
go.
you go. Yeah, they should go through and roll a witch doctor while the season is still kicking.
That's right. But yeah, I just noticed a lot more of them than I thought there would be, and I would love to go back to about BlizzCon time back in November and call up all those people who were like, ancient items suck, like this, they're adding this, it's gonna be awful, it's such a long tail, like who's gonna find anything? And I want to see what their opinions are now, because to me, I think that was one of the key sticking points early on, was like, you guys don't really know what the drop rates are like yet though, so until you test it. And it was kind of weird to get a grasp of it with that crazy buff that they had in the PTR. So I couldn't really tell like how many ancient items are going to drop. But seeing it in the live environment now, it seems fair. It doesn't seem like, even if you don't grind every day, all day, like some crazy hardcore player or something, that you're not ever going to see ancient items. Like, you're going to see them. It might just take a while to get an exact version that you want that's going to be BIS for sure, for sure.
Hmm.
But ancient items for everyone, which is awesome.
Yeah, definitely. I know I've found at least one upgrade in the limited playtime that I've had from an ancient item. I got it was just a pair of bracers that it rolled fire damage, crit chance, and dexterity. So I then rolled vitality onto it, and it's been great. It was nice. Though the only thing I don't like about it is I've been using Krelm's buff bracers for so long. I forgot that vortex and knockback were a thing. Because I've been wearing the same pair of bracers since like maybe 3 weeks into the season.
Yeah, you got those early.
Yeah, and I just have not found anything better than them. And now I found this, and it's just, oh, I actually have to pay attention to mechanics again. Oops.
Dang it! Not only are they making you be more active with your gameplay as a DH, but then you turned on extra hard mode.
Yeah, I know. It's like, dang. Why did I
Oh,
do
that's
this to
funny.
myself?
On the side of Crusaders, we do have permanent Acrats, where you never have to worry about jailer knockback. Just saying.
Yeah, I still find it hilarious after they wanted to remove. That's one of the reasons why they took away permanent Wrath of the Berserker for the permanent CC immunity. They go through and they give it to Crusaders. They literally hand deliver it to Crusaders.
Don't listen to anything that Nineball just said. It's impossible to get permanent Acrats. It's not OP. It's
Hey,
not strong at all.
they removed permanent smokescreen. You're next.
They're coming for me.
Mm-hmm.
I just hope instead of that, maybe they just design a better set that would make everyone want to go away from icons. Let's do it that way.
Yeah. Even though we've covered this for a few episodes, that was actually some comments that John Yang had about Crusaders, is that even though they have just a single set, it opens up a couple different builds of gameplay. So they're happy with where Crusaders are at right now. So that's why they didn't really get any significant changes like this time around.
Yeah.
Which is, speaking of which, I don't think that we've talked about patch 2.1.2 so much. Do you think we need to go over the patch notes themselves?
Probably not in as super detail. Like I remember we did that one episode where we literally went line item by line item.
Yeah.
I would just probably hit the highlights. The fact that they did add the new treasure goblin types in there. I actually saw an interesting I guess Twitter thread. I don't even know what you would call it. A Twitter conversation going around today that was asking if the Odious Collector, the one who drops your crafting mats and whatnot, could drop Forgotten Souls. And from what the collective of people on Twitter seemed to note, it was no. I didn't see any yesterday. I only had 2 Odious Collectors, I think, but it was mostly just whites, blues, yellows, and then plans, of course, they can drop. At this point in the season, I think most people have them, so probably not going to see those coming from them.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I did notice the Bloodshard Goblin, the Blood Thief, is there, and I killed a few on T6, and it was giving me about 400. I can't recall. Like I wasn't ever looking at the Bloodshards I had before I killed it, but I think I always had around like 90 or so. Like I just killed a Rift Guardian prior to it. So yeah, it was. I mean, they definitely, in the packs of goblins that were there was only about 1 Blood Thief. So it's clear that they don't want that situation occurring where there are multiple Blood Thieves and you have just dribbles of purple stuff around.
I came across 1 Blood Thief so far, and he dropped around 300. I want to say about 340 blood shards.
Okay.
For me, in the 3 goblin packs that I found, there were no Blood Thieves in them. He was just a solo goblin that I found while clearing rifts.
Really?
I feel like I'm unlucky in that respect. Like the one that I want to find the most, but instead it'll be like 5 of the gem hoarders, and I'm just sitting there. How many gems are in this one spot? I'm just clicking for 10 minutes.
I know, right? Because they're all just stacked on top of each other.
Yeah.
I think it's really cool, though, that with the addition of these goblins, each of them will matter at different points of the season if you're going to be a seasonal player. Because early on, you're going to want to see those Odious Collectors to get your craft mat supplies up and to get those plans knocked out, too, because you can craft ancient items from plans. So as many plans as you can get is going to give you a leg up in what you'll be able to get access to. But then, of course, as you shift to later in the season, like you're saying, Blood Thieves are going to be the ones that we probably care about the most. Along with the, Malevolent Tormentors, just because they have the capability to drop a ton of legendaries. So at that point, all you want is item generation, really, and not so much mats. It's kind of cool that it shifts that way. They all are important, just at different points.
Though, I think the Blood Shard and the Malevolent are always going to be the most sought after. Whereas
just in general, yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Whereas the Odious Collector and the Gem Hoarder are going to drop off relatively quickly. Just a couple weeks into the season, and you won't really care so much because I'm not crafting any gear anymore. I already have a huge stockpile for when I go to do my enchanting rolls, and I've already got all of my gear is set up with flawless royals. I don't need anything else from gems.
Right. Yeah, I think you're definitely on point with that. And yeah, I guess I hadn't really considered too the fact that as the season goes on, even in the early points, you still will want to be gambling stuff on Kadala anyway. So
Yeah, because I mean, every 25 blood shards that you spend is another chance at an ancient item.
this is true. Spend early, spend often.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, the only other change that I really observed that affected me were all within Greater Rifts because I was doing the Realm of Trials to make a bunch of keys to go for the leaderboards, if you will, just to try out the higher levels and see how much more I could push before from after the patch. Just same gear because I didn't find any like big upgrades. Not like you did, anyways.
Yeah.
And the realms are awesome now. Well, I mean, they're not as good as just like select the greater rift that you want to run, right? I think that's kind of what everyone wants, but they're still going to try and find a way to make it engaging gameplay that helps you get your greater rift key. But the fact that the waves come at you with almost no break at all actually helps a ton. It makes that process just faster. It doesn't feel as clunky. But also for certain builds, I feel like it helps too, because if you're trying to keep up like a Taeguk, for instance, or anything that you kind of need a crowd of enemies constantly around you, then it actually works to your advantage. So I enjoyed that.
I guess the only other big one that doesn't really get talked too much is that there was a vitality increase. Or not so much a vitality increase, life increase. So your life per vitality at level 70 was increased, and then also just I believe the base health that you gained at level 70 was increased. So everyone should notice a small little uptick in their toughness values. So I know mine went from 11 million to 12.5.
Yeah, I was gonna say mine was like about a 1.5 bump as well.
Yeah.
I think that kind of is. It's not talked about, but it's actually pretty important when you combine it with the Greater Rift monster damage going down, because it essentially gives you, it comes at that same thing from both ways. You know, you get more toughness innately, and then the damage that's coming in is decreased innately. So by virtue, you will just be better.
And on top of that, the life on hit and life regeneration was increased by about roughly 25% across the board.
Well, that's right. So even there, you're more resilient.
Yep.
Wow. One thing, I don't know if you observed it, but wow, Conduit, dude. I hadn't played Conduit after they made the changes to it. I wasn't in the PTR after they made changes to it, but man, I couldn't kill anything with that.
That was one thing that was talked about on Play Your Way. John Yang commented that he feels that they nerfed it too much. So I wouldn't be surprised to maybe if they do any minor changes to like fix bugs or whatever throughout season 2, they might up the damage of Conduit a little bit more. Otherwise, definitely look to see some buffs in 2.2.
That was actually going to be kind of my like closing statement question to you is, do you think we'll see any hot fixes to stuff that's in there right now before season 2 hits? Because right now it seems, I don't know if it's intentional or maybe just a thing they're doing for early on, but it seems like the goblin the groups of goblins are popping up far more frequently than they ever used to. And I don't know if that's just to show off the fact that they're going to be a bunch of goblins that you can find now, and also combining that with our next news item too. But that seems to be really frequent, and also the fact, Conduit like almost feels useless. So will that get a bump before season 2, or is it something they'll let right into the season and then change?
It's hard to say. They, in between those comments and when they actually pushed the patch, they had the opportunity to make some changes to it, but they didn't. I don't know. The closer we get to season 2, the less likely I think that they'll make a change, because I don't think they would want to make that type of change in season 2. If I was a developer, I wouldn't want to make that change during a season. Right. That could affect clear times. Even if it was at the beginning of the season, it just kind of, I want to make some changes, lock it down, and then besides bug fixes, this is it. This is everything that's going to happen. We're not going to change anything, so go have fun within these parameters. Obviously, season 1 has been just a giant test. It is season T, or season test.
Season T, I like that.
Yeah. So we had a major patch drop right before the season end, and through everyone everything that most people had accomplished to the wind, and hope that things stuck. But I don't know.
No, I think you're right. Like, they would probably want to avoid anything like that happening, anything that major happening again. I think there probably will need to be tweaks from things with maybe within the season, or maybe they just let it ride and say, okay, like we noticed there were things that need to be changed. That'll just be a change earmarked for season 3 or something, and maybe learn the lesson of kind of the craziness of changing things in the middle of the stream. But yeah, I don't know. It's a good patch. There are just some things that I'm like, it's kind of interesting. Scratch my head a little bit. But we'll see. I mean, it's again, like we can't even talk about anything really like statistically significant because we haven't played that much of this yet. So,
yeah, we are a little over 24 hours in. So
that's right.
Yeah, hard to say.
We'll see where it all shakes out.
Yeah, but speaking of goblins, and as you mentioned, our next news piece, the today's little tidbit that we have a community buff coming this weekend.
That's right. Get your farming ready because there are lots of things to kill, and chief among them are
goblins.
Goblins.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's interesting that it's a different buff for different things. If you notice that for the old generation, the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360, I think they're actually getting the better deal because they're getting the 100% boost to their legendary drop rate.
Yeah.
Which I saw, it was actually hilarious because I saw when the news item popped up right away, and I went and the first like couple of comments were like, "Who still plays this game? This is ridiculous." And then the like one of the next ones was like, "Is the 100% also coming to PC?"
Yeah. And I think I actually have an idea of why that was done.
Tell me.
All right. The PS3 and the Xbox 360 versions, they're not really doing any patch support for.
Mm-hmm.
They're not getting any of the new goblins or anything of that nature. And that this community buff, the main intent, probably when the devs were going through and coming up with it, is let's go and redo the double treasure goblin buff, which they had developed a long time prior, and put it into the game to show off all the new goblins that we have for the new patch. It's like, yes, that will be awesome. And then there's one guy in the back corner that's like, what about the PS3 and Xbox 360 players? Dave, you're right. And so, they just went through and they wanted, because, PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 players have kind of felt a little bit left out because they're not getting any patch support.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just going through and saying, well, hey, we consider you players and part of the community as well, so we'll give you a buff. And one of the only things they really can do to make anything meaningful would, be something along those lines. 100% bonus to legendaries.
Right, yeah. I mean, that's, throw him a bone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Good old Dave, thinking about the little guy.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, so for everyone else that's getting patch support that has 2.1.2 right now, you'll be experiencing, starting, I believe, Friday afternoon, a double goblin bonus. So every goblin that you see by itself will have a second goblin with it.
It'll actually be Friday at midnight.
At midnight, okay.
Yeah. So right at the as the clock strikes midnight and it turns to Friday, January 16th, the buff will go live.
Perfect. Okay. And that's actually a long buff because it's a week, I believe,
yep.
Right?
Yep, and it's going until next Friday, the 23rd. I am hoping that this is just like a sign of things to come, and the way that they kicked off Season 1 is having I believe, didn't they start Season 1 with the Goblin and a gold?
They sure did.
Yeah, if we could get some sort of community buff, in Season 2, that would also be awesome, though if they want to make it a little bit more hardcore, as it were, to not give us any buffs, during the season and just kind of be like, go at it,
Right.
There you go.
Actually, something I was thinking about too, a little bit off topic, but you remember when we were getting ready for Season 1 and we had all like emails going back and forth like, dude, we gotta be ready for these bounties and whatnot, and then throwing like the goblin stuff in there too. The fact that there's no, conquest to reach 70 first means that there's actually nothing compelling you to play on the very first day. Like, you're not going to miss, unless you're trying to be one of those people that does get a conquest for like reaching Greater Rift 35 first, or any of those, or Avaricia
Yeah.
if you think you have a really good
It,
strat for early on.
yeah, pretty much almost any of the other conquests still will give you an advantage if you play, as much and as early as you can.
I would say only those two though, because the
Oh,
lore one is going to
well,
take some time.
it is going to take some time, but I mean, if it takes someone on average, like 18 straight hours playing through everything in order to get all the rare spawns, all of the special NPCs to populate for the little drops and such.
Mm-hmm.
The person that starts 6 hours sooner is going to get it 6 hours sooner.
Well, I guess that's fair. I guess that's fair. So there. All
Yeah.
right. So good. Then there
I,
is a reason
I
to want to go
Yeah,
hardcore on it.
if you want to get your name up there and higher in the rankings for it, that one I expect not as many people will be competing in.
Right.
But that is actually one of the reasons where I won't be in as big of a rush to hit 70. I will probably still, if it does hit on a Friday, I will probably still stay up and play
Mm-hmm.
until I get 70, like we did last at the beginning of season 1. But I think I'll start on story mode instead of doing through adventure mode, just to kind of get a little bit of a jump start, because there are many of those lore books that you can only acquire during while playing story mode, and you can knock out the vast majority of them in just a single playthrough, like Leah's journals, the history of Westmarch, and a whole bunch of other things.
That makes sense. You're giving away all your strats, man. You sure you wanna let all these people know?
If you care about lore, you already know. Like, if you actually care about competing in those conquests, I'm not saying anything you haven't thought of already.
This is very true. This is very true. Was there anything else in terms of news items or things that we needed to hit?
I think there were a couple things. We had some blue posts, mainly just clarifying some things that we could probably go over.
That's right. I believe our good old friend Hotstreak over on the Diablo BlizzPro site.
Speaking of who, welcome back. He's been on a little bit of a hiatus there for the last few months.
That's right, man. Happy to have you back in the fold.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he noted that there were just a lot of, and I noted too, that there were a lot of blue posts going on simply because patch 2.1 was here. There were a lot of people who maybe took a break after starting up season 1. Coming back for the new patch and everything like that. So, people who weren't following, maybe people who weren't listening to Westmarch Workshop or following along on the PTR or whatever, they didn't know kind of what was going on. So one of the actual first ones that we have here, it's kind of important to know, is Boon of the Hoarder. It can actually drop off of Greater Rift Guardians now, but that's if you've seen it once already. And It's also separate from the different modes, so softcore, hardcore. And I believe that this was originally put in because it was a BITCH to get it back if you died in hardcore with it on. Because, finding a vault already is pretty tough, but then having to find 2, and sometimes that it doesn't even happen in the midst of one season. So this kind of says, all right, you found it already, we get it. Now you can get it back whenever you fight a Greater Rift Guardian if you lose it.
Yep, which is also helpful if you play a couple different classes of, you can, although it's one of those gems that you can easily just take off and keep in your stash, but if you don't feel like doing that and just want to level a bunch of them up, you can have it if you play different classes, and it's now a lot easier to get multiple copies for everyone.
That's right. Yeah, and it's going to be useful too, just in terms of stocking up on gold, especially when people will be crafting early on, like we noted, to get those early ancient items. Ancient items, yeah. I thought I said that weird. Ancient items. Yep. So that was a thing that was happening in the forums that we clarified. You want to get the next one?
Yeah, and the next one just went on to clarify. People are asking if you could craft ancient items, and they just want in to say that yes, Tyvlier made it clear that crafted items can roll as ancient. Same thing with Herodric Cache, exclusive legendary items. So your Ring of Royal Grandeur, Hell Trappers, and such, they also have a chance of becoming ancient. Whereas the Herodric Cache, does scale with the difficulty level. Crafting, however, does not. It seems to have just a base rate of what can roll ancient and what's not, and there's no way of affecting it. I imagine Kadala will work similarly in that, she'll just have a set rate at what your ancients can drop at, which, if you didn't know, the higher your difficulty, the greater the chance of an item dropping as an ancient, and that also translates over into greater rifts. So once you start going higher than greater rift 26, you'll have a higher chance at finding ancient items than you do in a torment 6 rift.
And this is another case for that whole, like, we don't have nearly enough statistical evidence to support the anecdotal evidence that we've been seeing. But I just wanted to put my 2 cents in that I did maybe like 5 Greater Rift 42s and then 2 Greater Rift 41s. I got 0 ancient items. I did like 3 T6 rifts and got 3 ancient items. So obviously T6 Master Rift.
Keeping it going.
Hey. I'm trying.
Uh-huh.
It's the theme, if you will.
Yep.
But yeah, that's really exciting. Although some people were noting that, or actually first, let me point out that Lieutenant Little Luck, who's part of our BlizzPro clan as well, he noted that he was able to find a Boon of the Hoarder, even though he hadn't seen the Vault ever. So maybe there's a little bit of a bug or something going on there. Unsure.
Very well could be.
We'll have to dig into that some more. But in terms of the ancient bounty items and ancient craftables, especially like the Hellfire Amulet and stuff, some people were saying like that's just going to be literally like a cosmetic piece, because when you are getting perfect versions of those things, you're just going to roll off the main stat anyways, and that's one of the only things that'll be affected by the ancient tier on jewelry. So in a way, it's just like, ooh, you got a shiny border on your Ring of Rogue. But I feel like there will be people, right, who are going to like have their ancient Akon set, have their ancient Marauder set, and everything else will be ancient, but that Ring of Rogue Grander will just be there in its plain old border. And you're going to want to get that exact same version of it ancient.
Yeah, I just want to go back, like something that I saw with people playing Hearthstone. People would go and level another class all the way up to 60 just to unlock a golden version of a base card for another class that they play, because it was the only thing they had that wasn't golden, and they had to do it. They had to have it. It bothered them so much. So yes, there will be people that do that.
Dude, people love the shinies, man. The Blizzard knows what they're doing.
Yep.
Speaking of shinies, they took one away, but in a way, they gave it back. And this is, of course, referring to the Band of Untold Secrets, which was a ring that you could get prior to patch 2.1.2. It wasn't really special, didn't have an extra legendary power, but it did have 5 primaries, so that was kind of its usefulness. They removed it from the game, in quotes, and replaced it with the Halo of Arliss. And that's the new ring for wizards that has the power that your ice armor now provides 50 to 60% melee damage reduction and automatically casts Frost Nova whenever you take 10% of your life in damage. So that's something to look out for if you love the wizard class. Rip Archon.
Yep, and then the final one was just we've talked about this one. Was just going through and saying that the console version, added all of the new set items from season 1 and season 2, as well as implemented the set changes. As long as you have the PS4 or the Xbox One. So they got a whole ton of new items just added into the game, as well as updated set bonuses. There was one other thing that I wanted to address that wasn't covered in the Blue Post Roundup. And that is just that there have been a lot of people that have been having problems with clans.
Yes, yeah. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yep. Luckily, I don't think that anyone in BlizzPro's been affected by it, but a lot of other people have been reporting that they log in and it just says clan unavailable. They can't bring up their clan tab, no clan chat, no community posts, and so they've just had a lot of people, putting in bug complaints. And so it was happening to you. Tyvlier did go through and say that anyone that's being affected by this, please go on to the support forums and to the bug report forums, and say that you're having the problem. They're still investigating it. They don't have an ETA on a fix yet, but they are currently working on it.
Indeed. Yeah, so hopefully it's kind of a bummer because when the game gets really active again, that's kind of the one really awesome feature that I loved coming in with Reaper of Souls. You get to see everyone's drops and you get to compare those, ancient
Mm-hmm.
items or whatever the new hotness is as people are rolling them in, but not having that feature is a bit, takes another part of the game out that I know a lot of people were clamoring for before they finally added it.
Definitely. And I remember having this conversation back on the Ink Gamers podcast so many years ago about people asking, who cares about clans? It's not like you have raids or anything like that, but it's just that feeling of camaraderie.
Mm-hmm.
I still hope that even though it will have 0% usefulness, they make a clan banner.
Yeah.
So that way just some icon or anything that you can create to signify this is our clan.
You know what would be really cool actually is if you could create, like you're saying, a clan banner. Like whoever is in charge of the clan like goes and designs it, and then as a member of the clan, you can say rather than the banner you design, you just adopt that clan's banner. And so whenever you drop it, I mean, like no one uses it, right?
Yeah.
So even if people don't care about it at all, just like whenever they happen to hit the banner button by mistake, it drops the clan banner, and you just get that feeling. Or even if you're like in a game and you get a kill and you just drop that banner, you're like, yeah, I claim this kill in like the name of BlizzPro or something.
Yeah. Most of the time, you see people just drop it in order to ping attention to something on the map.
Mm-hmm.
That's about it. And then you're just looking at the ping. And by the time you get over there, you're
The
not even
banner's already
caring about
gone.
the banner. Yeah.
Very true. Very, very true.
I've still the original things that they showed off in beta with it being on like the mountain of skulls and the other little skulls hanging from the banner based on your elite kills and such. That is so cool.
I remember when you brought that, I think it was Ink Gamers podcast, you brought it back up, and I hadn't thought about it in a long time, but yeah, man, that would be, especially because those numbers themselves are so hidden.
Yeah, it would be so cool, and at the same time, such a waste of development resources because no one would see and no one would care.
It's really true. It's really true.
It is.
Like, hey guys, so we delayed patch 2.2, but hey, look, your clan banner is awesome.
Awesome!
Oh god. I think with that we could probably move on to the feedback, which we'll probably be getting now, of people saying, how dare you suggest that the developers waste their time and not bring cool items into the game instead of your stupid clan, I hate you, blah blah blah.
Yes, but we are still collecting hate mail, so by all means.
That's true. If you hate something, let it out. Don't keep that hate bottled up. Send it on over to Westmarch Workshop at BlizzPro.com.
Yes, and we will repeat it on the air.
That's right.
Unless it's swearing and things like that. Even then we might.
We probably will. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who are we kidding?
Yeah.
And speaking of hate mail, we did ask for people to write in about how much they hate Archon for leaving, or just how much they hate him in general, and we got some really good ones.
We did. We did.
So I'm excited for that. I actually will just mention one in passing. I won't read it entirely, but there was one sent from a guy who had submitted an item of the week, and then last week we kind of chastised people for not submitting items of the week, and he thought we just passed over his item, yet we were complaining about items. But that was because there was an episode that Neinball and I did over the holidays that ended up on my YouTube, and some people maybe missed it. So if you are looking for, I believe episode 33 was the holiday episode, that's over on my YouTube, which is youtube.com/SASTF111. But I'll probably end up moving that over to BlizzPro anyway, so you can catch up on it. But of course, it's on iTunes and Stitcher, so no worries. So let's take an actual hate mail for Archon. This one's kind of long, so I'll just read a little bit of it. But it comes from Rasmussen the Wizard. So another wizard, a wizard to a wizard. Says, "Sup fellas," of course. "Just wanted to capitalize on the Archon hate mail early on. Not upset to see him go. He's been as useful to the podcast as Tasker and Theo is going to be for the Marauder build in the new patch.
Love it.
Plus, only cowards play as softcore wizards. Cowards." And just kidding, of course, he says. Westmarch is one of the first gaming podcasts he's ever gotten into. And he's been here since episode 1, which is awesome. I don't actually know how many people can say that. That's really cool. It's opened him up to a lot of other gaming podcasts and whatnot. So he likes that he's been able to, listen in and expand his horizons. Likes that we have a nice mix of convo, etc. And he has a question. Do we feel that Diablo 3 could benefit from a more active style of updating in the vein of Destiny or other MMOs? He's referring to the possibility of a couple of week-long public events or something to the effect of super short seasons like we were talking about last episode. He doesn't want to see the game necessarily go towards the MMO side, but even something like unique rewards or things that would be useful towards grinding higher greater rifts or temporarily increasing magic find, he thinks could help continue with interest. I believe that's the gist of it.
Yeah.
So what do you think? You've played Destiny, so...
Yeah, I mean, there's some interesting things that they did, in Destiny that just didn't work out. And you can see there's a lot of, especially with the last expansion that came out, Destiny's gotten a lot of criticism, and a lot of people have actually been comparing it to Diablo 3 and saying how Destiny got it wrong. And comparing Destiny to like early Diablo 3, just because it was so stingy with giving out the upgrades that you're running the same content again and again and again. You're running it, the same, the raid, not raid, but circuits. You're running the same circuits and you get nothing. And just like you have to go through and what was it, the Vault of Glass, and I forget the name of the new one because I've not played it yet. It's just you run the raid to get the gear in the raid that then lets you do that same raid easier.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah. Let me go and farm Act 4 so I have the gear that will let me beat Act 2. So
right.
Yeah.
But in general, I feel like something like that. I mean, we have talked about it in the past, but something similar to just interesting, like I log in 1 week and all of a sudden I have the opportunity to do something that I wasn't previously doing. Seems like an interesting concept.
Yeah. I mean, we get that in a sense, because some of the things that Destiny has done would just be like little weekend events. Like you have this special PvP mode that's available only during this time, but then also you have a new vendor that just shows up that sells you gear with slight variance in the stats and abilities and such. So it's nice, like little things, but you have to grind a lot in order to actually take advantage of those and get the rewards. It requires a pretty hardcore dedication in order to get some of those things. I'm not sure what a good thing in Diablo would be than just making it like a shorter season, because it would be, this person shows up once a month, and has some stuff if you brawled 100 times, or this person will show up every weekend and sell things, using, say, what would be a good analogy? I guess just Forgotten Souls. He sells legendaries based on Forgotten
Royal
Souls.
Gems, maybe?
Yeah, something along those lines. Just something that's a pain to collect.
Gotcha.
And that if you didn't go through and farm your heart out during the week, well, you missed it.
Then you don't benefit. Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to figure something like that out in terms of a fleshed out idea that also feels good and isn't necessarily a ton of development time. We'll see, though. You want to move on to another one?
Yeah, this one actually came in from Mad Hamster, who I know we've gotten a bunch of emails from in the past. He of course, as always, opens with "Sup, fellas." Yep. He still would love to see people go through and send in their items to the week to the show, but he just wanted to mention that he came across a Diablo 3 top legendaries website. It's www.diablo3ladder.com/legendaries and then /all-world.html. So just diablo3ladder.com and then go and check, for the all-world legendary rankings. And it shows you some of the best, or like the items with like literally perfect rolls that show like the best items that you can possibly find in the world, that's been collected from the BattleNet profiles.
Yeah, I'm actually showing it here on screen right now. People can
Mm-hmm.
see it. Well, the people that are viewing, anyways. But yeah, it looks like an interesting site. I love that there are so many outside resources that congregate this kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have Diablo Progress that can give you your world. That's how I find like the world rankings for Greater Rifts and things like that. So it's really cool that even though a lot of that stuff isn't supported in game, if you really want to get in depth about it, or the EPeen contests, because it's really what it measures at, after, if you think about it in the
Oh,
end,
yeah.
who's got the biggest sword.
Why does anyone else? What does anyone else play for?
This is true. This is true. I mean, yeah,
Uh,
if you think about it too, like even when we're talking about the clan chat being broken for some people, yeah, what it's hurting is showing off all the sweet drops that you're getting.
yeah.
And of course the social feature, but yeah, who cares about social stuff really?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I love the more of those things that pop up, the better. Because even there was that niche for a while of the Diablo databases that would help you determine if your demon hunter was hitting the right breakpoints and things like that. Remember, you showed me a site that was useful for that. So who knows what the next thing will be? But I'm glad people develop these tools and share them around.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. I'll take another another hate mail because I love them, but because I care.
Yeah.
I really do. I wish Archon was here. He said he was gonna be here in the Twitch chat. So I hate Archon because he lied to me and he said he would be here and he's not here. QQ.
You believed him.
I believed in the lie.
Mm-hmm.
I had a dream and now that dream is, I don't know what the line is. Matrix.
Taken from me.
Yes, taken from me.
Mm-hmm.
This email, this feedback comes from Timmer, aka Ritmu, and he says, "Hello there. Where's the sub fellas? Come on, man." Says, "My name is Timmer, and you helped me decide what to reroll on a Demon Hunter chess piece back in episode 24 or 23 or something." Wow, so it's a while back.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to send a complaint. "I've been watching Westmarch Workshop on YouTube since you started uploading. At first, I was enthused by your proper pronunciation of Ogchilds, which is of course pronounced Ogchild." Oh, he wrote it properly, but then I just auto corrected it.
It's in your head.
It is. I live with it every day. But slowly, hate began to grow inside of me. Why is this Archon guy so handsome? Can he not have any flaws? Now that he's gone, it will be so much easier to actually watch the videos without being jealous. At least he's already married. Is it true, though, that he's switching over to modeling for a penguin-related fashion magazine? Best regards.
No. He is going to the moon to train penguins in how to play Pokemon.
That's what it was, right? And there's Butterfreeze involved somehow?
Yes. Something about that. I don't remember. Something butterflies.
Yes.
I forgot the punchline, Trebek, I forgot the joke, but the punchline, Trebek, is your mother's a whore.
Mother's a whore. I'll take the penis mightier.
S-words for 500. It's swords, Mr. Connery. Saber!
Oh, classic. That's something we can throw around in the post show, the after hours too.
There we go.
Love that.
Quoting old Saturday Night Live.
Amen.
All
right.
Taking up the next one. This one is from Zyphus. He wanted to actually throw in some arguments in favor of elemental damage, kind of taking the opposite opinion from what I've had over the course of the show. He just wanted to say that back in D2, it would usually make your character and your gear specialized around a certain number of skills, usually around one or two elements. And that was something that he felt was lacking in Vanilla D3. It was only when Reaper Souls came out with the elemental damage that he got that, that flavor back. And he just wanted to say that in game design, your number one goal isn't to actually create a balanced system, but to create a fun experience. And that's usually done by trying to fulfill a specific fantasy, and you'll hear the developers talk a lot about that during their panels. And he feels that there's a very strong fantasy around being a fire wizard or a holy crusader that, as well as there might be some more eccentric builds like a frost demon hunter, which actually now is the most popular, one of the most powerful. And he just feels that having that elemental damage affix will allow players to specialize and achieve these fantasies. But he feels that, on the other hand, the flat damage, he'll agree with me here, that the flat damage bonus is boring. It's not interesting. And so he just threw out some ideas where, like, if it's a fire or poison, it adds a dot. If it's cold, it does increase damage to things that are chilled or frozen, or maybe extend the chill duration. Lightning has a small chance to proc like an overload, which deals the damage again, and has some sort of effect. The triggering a skill, it might have like a 10% chance to activate the skill again, but only at a reduced percentage of damage, just so you can get different procs and things from it. And just throwing out those ideas of things that you could do. And I agree and disagree on some of those points. In D2, you specialized. If you only specialized in one element, you were hurting yourself, because by the end of Diablo 2, specifically after patch 1.10, everything in Hell had at least 2 immunities, and elites had more.
Right.
If you specialized in a single type of damage, you were in trouble, unless you grouped with people. You had to specifically spec in 2 types of damage. It actually forced you to diversify your skills and diversify your damage. Otherwise, everything else would be going into skill synergies to pump up your frozen orb even more than it already was, or to pump up your fireball. It just was to create. You were going to put everything into just these single skills, and then that's it. The game itself gave you a reason to break out, and you were forced to actually then, okay, well, I've got to specialize in 2 skills, 2 elemental types then. In Diablo 3 lacks that, because there's no immunities, there's no resistances or armor on creatures that reduces the amount of damage that you do. And so now all that it is the effect of what would have happened in Diablo 2 had that not been the case, where you would have everything pumped inside a single element and that's it. And I feel that that would be awesome if Diablo 2 had a mechanic like that. And they actually, they did with the Fallen Angels. They would get the shield that reduced the amount of damage from the first element that they took, but they were just nerfed in this patch.
Yeah. They're still annoying a little bit. But
yeah, they're still annoying, but not as much.
Not nearly as much.
Yeah, and I don't think that it's a change that we'll see the developers make, just because they intentionally left out those mechanics, even though they had the opportunity to bring them back in. Especially with Reaper of Souls focusing you into a single elemental type now, it would be suicide for them to do it. But I still think that you could benefit from removing that elemental damage type, adding in something else that would make it more interesting to have varied skills. I like the fact that while leveling the Crusader, or not the Crusader, my Demon Hunter, I was using Frost Arrow while stacking fire damage for Cluster Arrow, just because it would proc Bane of the Trapped. And it was a damage increase for me to use that skill, because it was proccing Bane of the Trapped. Little interactions like that, if they could do, to give you some bonus for using multiple skills, or not feeling like you're pigeonholed into, well, this is the highest damage skill that I can use, so I'm always going to use this one. Which was for Frost Demon Hunters, because of Bane of the Trapped, just stacking on cold damage and then using all Frost spells is the best way of playing. If they did something else, and that I could use the physical Cluster Arrow and then like the cold generator, that would be cool. That would be interesting, but you can't do that with the way that the game's set up. Right. And that's my thoughts on it.
Even another part of that idea that was brought up too, we saw in the data mine for, I believe, Reaper of Souls at one point, one of the builds that they had brought back the idea, or maybe we were just speculating on it, but were thinking about the idea of the elements doing something again. Because it was an idea, I believe, early before Diablo 3 Vanilla was.
It was something they showed in the first gameplay when they revealed Diablo 3.
Right, yeah. The fact that all the elements would actually have secondary effects.
Yeah, that they were showing that lightning, when it crit, would stun in that first gameplay video. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think that kind of it's similar to what was being described in the email, but he took it to another level, which would be really cool just because it's more interesting than just another stun, another dot, or something like that. It
Yeah.
actually would affect the gameplay.
Yeah, it changed up how the element. It still would give you an overall damage bonus over time, without just being this skill does X increased damage.
Mm-hmm.
Or this element does X increased damage. This does a dot. This procs an extra skill. That would be that overload idea that you had for the lightning. That would be an awesome stat to add in to replace elemental damage, because you can tune something like that to give you the same overall damage bonus. It's not a flat thing, and it doesn't specify, and you can make it so it doesn't have to be one particular element. It would fulfill that same goal and give you an interesting way of dealing additional damage, and make it so that way you're not tied to a single element. If you want to be, sure,
Fine.
You still can, but
Yeah, no, that's actually a really great point. Add some freedom.
Yep.
All right, I'll take the next one. From Juno Reactor, who we actually haven't heard from in quite some time.
Oh yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah. What have you been up to, friend? Thanks for writing in here. He says, "Sub fellas, of course. I think I know why Archon is leaving the Westmarch Workshop. He is secretly training to become a hockey player. He's hoping to join the new Las Vegas hockey team. I think there's a penguin joke in there somewhere. Kidding aside, I want to thank Archon for all the work that he has done on the show, as well as entertaining all of us Diablo fans." And that's the first part of this email before he gets to his idea. But I just wanted to throw that one in there, of course, because all the jokes and the hate mail in quotes aside, Archon really did. I mean, we talked about it a little bit in the last episode, but he was a bastion of someone you could. I don't even know the words, but you just he was a rallying cry for the community, because I was talking to Neinball about this earlier, just the effect that he had on the community. So many followers and so many people that looked forward to his stream, and just I think it's hard when you're that person. Like Archon maybe himself doesn't even understand just the importance of what he stood for and the option that he kind of presented among the different D2 streamer or D3 streamers that were popular at the same time that he was. It was just a really cool place to hang out and play the game and talk about the game. So there is that other side of it where we do want to thank him as well for everything that he did. Going off of the sappiness though, into this cool idea. This actually is a really cool idea. It's something that we were floating about Twitter, I want to say last month, but it's the idea of a Diablo esport, if you will. I'll use Juno Reactor's own words. He says, "I think what Diablo is missing is the idea of racing. Right now, with the way the leaderboards work, once you complete a greater rift, you get a time, and then you compare that time to the other players. But it might make more sense for there to be multiple people racing the same greater rift to see who has the fastest time. So it's kind of like taking it to the track, where you're running a 100 or a 400 in the Olympics, and it's those people in the race against each other. Right now, it feels like even though you have the fastest time on the leaderboards, there's a lot of different factors that go into it, like conduit, which he equates to wind assistance in a time trial or something like that.
Yeah.
And he says this would maybe solve the problem of having two different playing conditions, like the upcoming patch, or the patch that has now passed to be 2.1.2, and how that had an effect on the leaderboards. So he was hoping that, at BlizzCon in the future, maybe we could have an exhibition where they have 4 players race against each other, or even teams of 4. So the Diablo developers versus Diablo streamers, for example. And this would be a way to introduce kind of an esports feel to Diablo, which had no stage at BlizzCon, notably with all the other amazing stages that were there. He also goes on to say there could be even a tournament structure, kind of like Hearthstone, where you bring a certain number of classes and you race those ones, and you can get bans, and he's getting crazy with it. So, TLDR, racing would be cool as an esport version of Diablo, and it would maybe be a little bit more fair versus the whole, once you solidify your spot, it's solidified, and when something drastic changes, it kind of changes everything.
Yeah, that goes to some of the things that we talked about, over the course of many episodes, is just having some sort of set rift. It's like this. It's the same setup, same spawn, same conduit placements and such, and that people can go and just see who can get the best time. Who can refine it down to get the best time. Make it. You might have like the 15-minute time limit, but it is a 7 level rift, and each rift you have to kill X number of enemies, in order to spawn the portal to the next one.
Mm-hmm.
But they always spawn in the same location. Just gives things people, like, well, what's the best, more effective route in order to farm? What can I do to optimize my build to get through all these different levels and these different enemies and such? It does have to be handcrafted at that point. It's not something that they can let the random generators go through and do, but just add that kind of that little level of legitimacy to it that would allow it to take that step towards being, something like an esport, competition.
Yeah, and even if you do think about something like StarCraft, there are only a certain amount of maps per season that they have over there. So maybe you handcraft, like you were saying, 3 or 4 of those maps for the pool, so you can't prepare in advance for exactly one map and kind of be able to shortcut it that way. But that still allows you to have everyone on the same map, kind of introducing RNG elements here and there because you don't know what map it is, you don't know who you'll be paired against. But then you get that racing aspect that does get the esports drive going, and it could be something that actually is fun to watch because it's easier to know when you see X person at this part of the dungeon and you just saw Y person race past that part. You're like, oh man, he's ahead of him, and you can get that excitement. You can get someone announcing that.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that actually has been drawing more and more people every year is the live raid at BlizzCon. Is you see the two teams go at it at one another. I didn't watch it this year, but I know the previous year, the 2013, was a little bit boring because one of the raid teams got stuck on one boss. And the other one just blew them away. They were almost like cleared with the rest of the instance by the time they actually got Twin Shamans down. So it kind of killed. Hit or miss. Yeah, at that point it kind of killed the feeling to it. But other ones, I mean, they were like within minutes of one another. It was really, it's like, oh, they had that one person die during the fight. That actually means something because now they're going to overtake them. It's things of that nature.
Yeah, no, that'd be really exciting. Were there any other feedbacks that you would want to tackle?
There was actually one big one that we got from Jonas, a listener over in Europe, Germany to be specific. So, Guten Morgen, Guten Tag, Guten Abend. I think I covered everything. But he just wanted to go through and just hit up some things that he feels is kind of wrong with the game and that he would like to see changes. One of them is, of course, the Bane of the Emerald, with emeralds just being problematic for weapons. And this is one I believe we talked about in the last 2 episodes, is that just some of the comments that John Yang has made is kind of the idea of potentially adding in legendary gems.
Yes.
That would then make the emerald versus rubies versus amethyst argument irrelevant. They'll just have a new legendary gem that will just be like, well, this will be it. This will replace those gems completely. And
then more options hopefully after that too.
Exactly. Because he one of the things that he said is kind of making his idea was just make the gems add a percentage of elemental damage to your weapon. Or going through and bringing something like old jewels back from D2, particularly the rainbow facets, which gave you a bonus to elemental damage and then also increased the amount of damage that enemies took from that element. And then he also just he noted some bugged items, things that they were dropping at low levels, but with level 9, but with level 70 stats. And he some other things that we've kind of been covered and talked about to death, like blood shard limit. He would love to see it increased, although I guess it's kind of a moot point because Blizzard does not want to change it,
right.
And even though we all want to see it done.
Wait for the next expansion.
Yeah, I don't know if it was a misspelling or intentional, but he also just kind of put it at me as Neinball.
I saw that.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a Diablo 2 reference, a misspelling, or if that's how you spell ball in German. I don't know. But then also some other things like the crafting material auto pickup, which is something that they said that they wanted to do in the past, but they haven't gotten around to it.
That was something we were talking about last week, actually.
Yeah, it's making the crafting mats into a type of currency, and so it auto pickup. That might come in 2.2, just from what we've learned. That is a pretty huge change to the way that the game engine works.
Mm-hmm.
So that will take time. So hopefully 2.2, maybe the next expansion. Don't know. And then also just one of the he had a couple items of the week. I don't know if you included any of those, but also he just thought that the idea of making the rare items easier to acquire is just a good change for the mentality of the game, in his opinion. And that's something that I definitely agree with.
Yeah, and it's working. And first, I did include a few of his items, so we'll definitely get those showed here in a little bit. But yeah, I definitely agree that the rare items not being as rare is a good change. And I don't think they could have done it if they weren't introducing, kind of like what we said previously, if they weren't adding ancient items at the same time.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
It's really good that they took advantage of that happening. And it's working. Like I saw so many well, not so many, but I saw furnaces yesterday, which is rarer than usual, or more. You know what I mean? It's happening more than it used to happen because we go weeks in the clan without seeing furnaces. So I saw one yesterday. I saw Tasker as soon as I logged on today. So those things are dropping. It's great.
Yep. And his final comment was just apologizing for any of his bad English. I just have to say your English is much better than my German, and probably better than some of my English.
I know. I love that they're always like the few people who are writing from the EU and they apologize for their English, but then it's like picture perfect English. It puts our English to shame. It's like we live here and we bastardize it.
Well, it's because we grow up speaking it. Before we even learn like the rules and the context of the language, we're already speaking it.
Yeah.
So we know how to use it before we know how to use it. Whereas over there, they're learning from the beginning the proper structure and syntax.
Formal education.
Yeah, exactly. It's the difference.
That's very true. There was one more that I wanted to cover. And it is this one from one of our clan members. His name is Psycho, but he also is a member of the armed services. He's a sergeant. And I just wanted to read out his message here. It starts out with "Sup, fellas," of course. And he says, "This is Psycho, or Psycho." Well, I skipped his battle tag because I didn't know if he wanted it read out loud. But I'm the one that has told you both that I'll be deploying in February. Both of you, Neinball and Leviathan, were both very gracious and supportive when I was informing you of my situation. I just wanted to thank you for the community that I'm a part of a couple hours a day and while I listen to your podcast. It's a little odd feeling this sense of community from a game, but it's odd in a good way. So thank you both. Leviathan, I'm glad you found your dog. Neinball, I think of you every time I find a Tasker in Theos, and I wish Archon the best of luck in his new endeavor. I started into the community aspect with his stream, and I'm glad I can listen to your show. I'm sure I'll have plenty to catch up on when I return. Ha! Keep up the good work. And I just wanted to read that one out because it kind of nicely summarized, some of the inside jokes that we've had over the last few months. The fact that there are people who, have real lives that come and, participate in Diablo, participate in the podcast, participate in the community aspect of all of this. And they may not always have access to the game or things like that. So I just think it's cool to kind of acknowledge the fact that this thing is bigger than just sitting down to a keyboard and killing demons mindlessly. Like all of us together are doing something that's kind of bigger than all of us by our individual selves.
Yeah, and definitely wish you best of luck, Psycho, in your deployment. He's going to not so much of a nice area. The nice area of the not nice area.
Yeah.
Stay safe, and keep in touch. I don't know how easy it will be for you to listen to the show, but by all means, you have our email address. Go through, send us in, thoughts, feelings, feedbacks, call us names, hate mail. It's all good. Love to hear from you while you're out there serving your country.
Likewise. Thank you for the service. All right. Any other pieces here from you?
No, I think that about covers it up.
Cool beans. We'll close up the feedback. Actually, I think I'll use this moment to make a suggestion to the community that we got from. I forget exactly. I feel really bad that I forgot who precisely mentioned this to me. But I was streaming one weekend, and people were, coming and going and whatnot. And someone who listens to our show frequently said, you guys got away from the builds, like when it was just Archon and Neinball, and you had more time. You guys used to do some of those, cool builds and screen sharing and things like that. So what if maybe in season 2 going forward, you guys solicited builds from the community, people who wanted to improve on maybe one of their characters for the season, or just wanted an extra opinion. Have people send in their profiles and whatnot and ask you to kind of analyze their character or what they could change or do better. And I thought that sounded really cool. It's another way for us to get more feedback. Mm-hmm. It's another way to engage with players. And it's also another way to help you get better at the game, which is it serves a lot of purposes. So I think we decided, starting with Season 2, we would go ahead and kick that program off. So yeah, in a couple of weeks, once you guys get underway in Season 2, if you find that you hit a roadblock, you can't get past Greater Rift 30, you just want us to look at your monk and wonder why it's not as good as Dat Mods is or something like that, shoot us an email at westmarchworkshop@blizzpro.com and we will help you out. I'm really excited for that because I love that part. Like we do some theory crafting here and there, but we never dedicate time to it, so it's really exciting to get that going.
It is definitely one of those ones that we've kind of strayed away from a little bit, but well, it's just the two of us. We have less to talk about, even though we are carrying on quite well enough with only the two of us.
This is true.
It'd be a nice thing to kind of add a little bit more format to the show.
Indeed. I hope you just thought of that song, just the two of us. That's all the singing you'll get from me.
We can make it if we try, the two of us.
Ooh, this is getting too sexy. You might have to push this to the after. Let me start the items of the week here so I can change the screen from my blushing face. So you'll be seeing on your screens here soon, and iTunes and Stitcher listeners, you'll be seeing on your screen nothing, but you'll be hearing our lovely voices. We have a item that was submitted from the Xbox One, which the submitter of this one, whose name, drumroll please, is Conoro Keefe, and he's writing to us from Ireland. And he says, Xbox One, sad times, doesn't have the screen capture the same way that the PS4 does with the share thing. So he had to kind of bootleg this image for us. But it's a golden flens. And it's 4,077.9 DPS, which is huge for a two-hander. It's got all the right stuff going for it. Really high rolls on the base damage. 10% damage affix rerolled on there. Enchanted. 955 strength. 7% attack speed. 130% critical hit damage, which is socketed in there from an emerald. And then the sweep attack restores 3 wrath. And so this is obviously the weapon of choice for your Roland's builds, for your Crusaders. It's two-handed flail, if you're not familiar with the golden flints. And it's tough because it has potential in terms of being really good, but just Roland's isn't quite there. So if Roland's ever gets an update, and I was actually kind of spitballing ideas to Nevelistis, saying, hey, like, poke John Yang with this, like, turn Roland's into XYZ. Who knows if anything will come of it, but I feel like that set could be really good. It just needs more damage mitigation because it's already a melee-based set, and if you're going to lose permanent Acrats, like we were saying earlier, which is OP, even though it's not OP.
Yeah. And I think that it also could probably benefit a lot more from just being able to damage multiple enemies at the same time.
Right, yeah. Yeah, more area damage. Or area. Actually, wow, imagine a use for area damage if it, like, turned into something even bigger than what it already is.
Yeah.
We'll see. Let's see. Next up on your screen, you will see a Firebird's Breast, and this one was submitted to us by Daryl Perry, and he says this is a perfect item. You'll see that it has 500 intelligence, 500 vitality. These are all innate. Nothing on this has been rerolled. Increased damage for Blizzard by 15%. And then your 3 sockets. And it's got its secondaries in life after kill with 5,387 and 1 yard of pickup radius. So the secondaries aren't perfect. Doesn't matter. All the primaries are, which is awesome. So you could re-roll. I don't know, like what do Firebird wizards use for skills? Is there a skill you could re-roll there?
This is one of those ones where I don't know. I wish Archon was here.
I know, right?
Yeah. I imagine, as most people will use that as, a skill damage slot. I don't know if they're one of the ones where there's not a decent skill for the chess piece, or if it would be better off as, all resist.
Right. Or even like reduce damage from elites.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but either way, very sexy, and you have lots of options, so not too shabby.
Mm-hmm.
Firebirds does use. Oh, that's right. They use the. There's a fire version of Blizzard. I totally forgot they made that change to the runes. So there you go.
There we go. Thank you, chat.
Chat hype. Here's one of Jonas's items that we were talking about previously. He submitted a Hellfire amulet, and of course, I love highlighting Hellfire amulets because they're so hard to get to be awesome. And this one looks like it was doing really well for him before patch 2.1.2 because it's a dexterity-based Hellfire amulet, 732 dex with perfect attack speed, which is essential for that breakpoint, 7%. And then he re-rolled 94% critical hit damage on here, and it has a socket. So it's got the Enforcer gem.
Yep, and rolling awareness, that is... There's one of your core ones if you play hardcore.
Absolutely.
Just basically, it's nice getting one of the ones that you absolutely need to have, because then you can play around with that skill slot that it frees up to whatever it is that you want, as opposed to getting one of those ones that might be the next best, but it doesn't, it kind of limits your options.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this definitely gives you a lot more leeway. And even the secondary of the reduced melee damage. I mean, of course, at some point, DHs just don't want to get hit anyways, but it's a little... It's always nice to have.
Yep. Could also be, that would still serve pretty well for a Demon Hunter even now, even though it's, the attack speed isn't that great. It's still, that is an amazing item.
Still will do something for you, yeah.
Yep.
Congrats, Jonas. And these are also his Tasker and Theos. And I showcased these because we actually have a little Tasker and Theo competition. And also because this is probably the last week that we'll be getting them, seeing as this was before patch 2.1.2 launched. So, this is the last really importance era of them. But these are great. These are 698 dex, 7% attack speed again. So hitting that perfect attack speed. Critical hit damage increased by 50%, innately perfect. By the way, I've never seen, well, on like crappy items, sure, but on any like piece that you want to keep, I've never seen a perfect critical hit damage roll, so super lucky. Yeah. And re-rolled an affix previously to get critical hit chance up to 10%, and his legendary power is 47% of the attack speed for the pets.
Yep. Which out of a max of 50, that's not too bad.
Not too bad at all. But wait, Neinball, there's more. Check out these Tasker and Theos. Actually, the other ones are better. This is from Ballin, and he presented his Tasker and Theos. I actually realized I meant to do the one before the other, but I grouped Jonas's items together. But in any case, this one, 672 dex. The show goes on. Attack speed increased by 7%. He has rerolled the critical hit damage here, so it's increased by 47, so you could take that to 50 if you wanted. And the critical hit chance is 9%. I mean, it's not as bad by that much.
Yeah, that's one of those ones where, this late into the season, probably swimming in money, just, how many more millions of gold do you want to put into that just to get it to the 50?
It would take millions. It's hard to get that 50% even on enchanting. We should mention he has the 48% on his legendary power, so he gets 1% nudge over the other.
Which prior to patch 2.1.2 would have been enough in certain circumstances that if it pushed him to a break point would have made these gloves better, even though everything else about them is inferior.
This is true.
Yep.
Craziness how
very rare circumstance, but it could have happened.
It just kind of even further illustrates how crazy that Marauder set really was before the change.
Mm-hmm.
And lastly, I actually have a bonus image for you. So, this, I guess, is a good point to introduce the fact that we are trying to limit it to about 5 items of the week per week. So the cut is high. I would love to see a lot of ancient legendaries next week. So if you guys want to submit those to us, that would be excellent. But yeah, we're going to try and limit it to 5, unless it's just a slate of unbelievably amazing gear. So, give us your best, because we're making that cut. This item, I think you'll like this when it pops up on your screen there, Neinball, was submitted by Bajarn, another one of our EU listeners. And he noted that this is the best in slot item for all the haters and detractors of Blizzard, because it's a rare dagger entitled Kill
Blizzard. It is beautiful.
I just love when those little moments happen.
Yeah.
Who looks at rare items, Like, how was he really just looking through items and he's like, oh, look at that. Kill Blizzard.
Yep. Kill Blizzard.
Death to Blizzard. So that's it for our items of the week, man. We've made it through our first solo duo show without Archon.
Our first solo duo show. Yes, something there does not make sense.
Don't even think about it. Just let it happen.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I don't know. What do you got, man? How are you feeling about things? What's your plan for 2.1.2 going forward?
2.1.2, I think probably one of the things that I am focused on first is knocking out that lore book achievement, to be honest.
Season 2, you mean?
Season 2, yes, sorry.
Even you want the season to be here now.
Even I want it to end, yeah. As far as 2.1.2, I think I'm just going to progress on just a little bit more. Try and see if I can get a couple more ancient legendaries. See if I can maybe take a crack at Greater Rift 35, just to get myself up there, higher than I've ever been. Just as one other little personal goal. Though I almost died tonight in a Torment 6 Rift. Well, I was playing before the show, yeah. So that would have been a heavy episode had that not died. Yes, bad. It was just it was a rather large elite pack of bats. It was like a five or six elite bats that had electrified, and they all just surrounded me and procced awareness almost instantly.
Ooh.
And I have to say, if it had not been for the new Marauders change, I probably would be dead, because I was just able to burst them down so much faster by dropping down 3 turrets and then unloading on them, and then refilling with Punishment and the Raven, while just spamming the hell out of Smokescreen.
Look at you! You're the poster boy for the changes.
Yeah,
2.1.2 worked for me.
Yep, and it was just one of those ones where it's like, okay, all right, I'm 70% done with this rift, but I think I'm 100% done with it. I'm just going to get up and walk away a little bit, because it's like one of those ones. They finally all died, and I end with my potion on cooldown, no discipline, and at 20% health with awareness procced. So it's like I'm just going to walk away for a little bit, because that was intense.
You need a breather.
You
need a breather. Oh man, it's that hardcore life, man. That's what I always, if you can't ever say any words for it, just that hardcore life. Dude.
Yeah, it's just one of those, I'm just breezing through, just dropping turrets, killing things, nothing's really touching me, and then all of a sudden, blap, awareness procced, and then the game got real,
And that's why I think, there are some of those things out there where people are like, oh, we need more difficulty levels, like, Torment 7, Torment 8. But I think hardcore really still brings it into perspective that you feel like you can sleep through a lot of those rifts, and most times you can, but you always have to be on guard, just because you have any lapse in concentration, or just like you get yourself into a bad sitch, and the death is very real. It can come for you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, for me, I think that I will just continue to experiment, maybe play a little bit. I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out what this all means. Double rainbow all the way across the sky. What does it mean?
Ah,
But you know, it's good. It's good for the game. It's good for the health of the game. I think players are happy, so that is making me happy. And I can only continue to watch the leaderboards and see who comes out of nowhere all of a sudden.
mm-hmm.
But salt aside,
Ah,
the saltiness aside, I think it's. I just really hope that people won't burn themselves, because that's the last thing I want to see. Is, we get to season 2 and people are like, oh, this feels like old hat. We've done this. So
yep.
with that said, I will start up our outro music.
All right.
Did we forget anything?
No, I think that's pretty much about it.
Sweet.
Yeah, that is pretty much it for tonight.
Feel good about that, man.
Yeah, we'll be back next week. Hopefully, we'll start having some tips and things about what to prepare for season 2.
Yeah, no, I actually have been putting together some thoughts on that. That's like, maybe that's something I'll go through and really kind of hash out, because there definitely will be, even though we were just talking about, you don't need to be there right away unless the conquest is something you really care about. There are definitely some things you could do early on to give yourself a leg up. But yeah, guys, I appreciate everyone that's sticking with us, even though the beautiful Archon has left us. Feel free to follow the Twitch stream if you're here watching live. It's twitch.tv/Leviathan111. You'll be notified when we go live for the Westmarch Workshop every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We'll also be on iTunes and Stitcher as soon as possible after the show is done. We upload this thing all over the place. It'll be on the BlizzPro YouTube channel. No matter what you use, you'll be able to find us. Also follow Neinball on Twitter at NeinballGamer. And you can follow me as well at SAStewart111. Check out awesome articles on Diablo.BlizzPro.com. And just keep getting them ancients, them brand new old ancients.
Them brand new ancient items.
Peace out, peeps.